All right, picture this. You've been working the same job for 20 years. It's not glamorous, it's not something you bring up at dinner parties, but it's been your life. For me, that job was being a mortuary technician. Yeah, a morgue worker. I know. Most people get the chills just thinking about it. But for me, it was quiet. It was peaceful, in its own strange way. I was the final caretaker for people on their last journey. It's a responsibility I always took seriously. After 2 decades in the quiet, sterile halls of the county morgue, my retirement day finally arrived. It was a bittersweet feeling. I was ready for a life with more sunshine and less formaldehyde, but this place, it had become a part of me. The clatter of the gurney wheels, the hum of the refrigeration units, the scent of disinfectant, it was the soundtrack of my adult life. My colleagues, the few I worked with, threw me a small, awkward party in the break room with a sheet cake and some lukewarm coffee. It was nice, but it didn't feel like the right way to say goodbye to the place itself. Before I handed in my keys and walked out for the last time, I wanted one final memento. Something just for me. The main autopsy suite, Bay 4, was where I'd spent most of my hours. It was empty and freshly sanitized, gleaming under the harsh fluorescent lights. It felt appropriate. I propped my phone up on a stainless steel counter, set the timer, and stood in the middle of the room. I managed a small, tired smile for the camera. It was a picture of me, in my element, one last time, a final, silent farewell. I glanced at the photo on my phone, saw my own familiar face against the backdrop of tiled walls and steel tables, and then I slipped the phone into my pocket and walked out into the afternoon sun, not looking back. The first few weeks of retirement were a blur of sleeping in, gardening, and catching up on all the TV shows I'd missed. It was strange adjusting to a world that was so loud, so vibrant, so alive. One evening, I was sitting on my porch, scrolling through photos on my phone, reminiscing. That's when I came across it. The picture from my last day at the morgue. A wave of nostalgia hit me. I smiled, remembering the weird mix of sadness and relief I felt in that moment. I decided to zoom in on my face, just to see the expression in my eyes. Was I happy? Was I sad? As my thumb and forefinger spread the image, enlarging my face, my focus drifted to the background behind my shoulder. The room was supposed to be empty. I knew it was empty. I'd cleaned it myself. But in the photo, something was there. Tucked away in the shadow of a doorway leading to the cold storage, there was something off. My heart started to pound in my chest, a frantic drum against my ribs. It was probably just a trick of the light, a reflection, a smudge on the lens. I told myself to calm down, that 20 years in a morgue had finally made my imagination run wild. I zoomed in further, my hand starting to shake. The image became pixelated, but the shape was undeniable. It wasn't a trick of the light. Behind me, in the deep shadow of the doorway, stood a figure. It was tall and slender, almost impossibly so. But that wasn't the part that made the air freeze in my lungs. It was the hand. A pale, almost luminous hand was raised. And it wasn't just raised. The fingers were slightly curled, caught in a motion that was unmistakable, even in the grainy photo. It was waving. I dropped my phone on the deck, the clatter echoing in the quiet evening. It couldn't be. I was alone. I was always alone in there. My mind raced, trying to find a logical explanation. Maybe one of my colleagues was playing a prank, but they had all been in the break room, and none of them would ever joke like that. We had an unspoken rule. You respect the dead, and you respect the space. No exceptions. My breath came in ragged gasps. I picked up the phone, my fingers fumbling. I had to look again. I had to be wrong. I zoomed back in, my eyes scanning every pixel of that shadowy corner. The figure was still there. The pale hand was still there, frozen in its silent, impossible gesture. It was waving goodbye. Or was it waving hello? Sleep didn't come that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that hand, pale, long-fingered, and moving. Who was it? What was it? In all my years working with the deceased, I had never experienced anything supernatural. I'd heard stories, of course, old-timers' tales of whispers and shadows. I'd always dismissed them as products of stress and a grim environment. I was a man of science and procedure. What I saw, what I touched, was real. Everything else was fantasy. But this photo was real. It was data. It was evidence of something my rational mind couldn't process. Was it one of them? One of the hundreds, maybe thousands of souls who had passed through my care? Was this their way of saying goodbye to me? The quiet man who attended to them in their final stillness? The thought wasn't as comforting as it sounds. The image wasn't friendly. The figure was menacing in its stillness, and the wave felt mocking. Days turned into a week, and I couldn't shake the image. The joy of retirement had evaporated, replaced by a gnawing anxiety. I stopped sleeping in my bedroom, opting for the couch with the lights on. Every creak of the house made me jump. Every shadow in the corner of my eye sent a jolt of panic through me. I felt like I was being watched. The peace I had sought in retirement was gone, replaced by the feeling that I hadn't quite left my old job behind. Or maybe something from my old job had followed me home. I thought about showing the photo to someone, my wife, my son, but how could I? They'd think I was losing my mind. Dad spent too long in the morgue, and now he's seeing things. I could already hear their worried whispers, so I kept it to myself, a dark secret on my phone. I would pull it up dozens of times a day, zooming in, hoping the image would change, hoping I'd suddenly see the light fixture or the piece of equipment I'd mistaken for a hand. But it never changed. The pale hand was always there, waving from the darkness. This thing, whatever it is, it feels connected to me now. That photo wasn't just a memory of my last day, it was a bridge. It feels like an invitation was sent, and an answer was received. I left the morgue, but a piece of it, the darkest piece, latched on and refused to let go. I don't know what it wants. I just know that I used to work in a place full of the dead, but for the first time in my life, I am truly, utterly terrified. Thanks for sticking with me through this. It's a lot, I know. If you've ever had an experience you just can't explain, let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoy stories that get under your skin, consider liking this video and subscribing for more. Stay safe out there.